Alright guys, welcome back to Schmattz Outdoors. Today we're gonna do a couple part series here on fur handling of a mink. The first video here is gonna be the actual skinning process of a mink, and then we're gonna do a part 2 of this series. The second video will be actually doing the fleshing of the mink and boarding them, and then like I said, taking them off, combing, just getting them ready to sell essentially. So we're going to go through the tools that I'm using to skin this mink first, and then we'll go through the tools that I use to actually put the mink on a board, flesh them, all that. It's pretty simple process for both of them, but like I said, we'll quick go through all the tools. I think I'm going to put you on a head mount here. I'm going to skin them in my basement, which I typically wouldn't do, but I'm going to do it because the audio I think is going to be a little better, and I can kind of show you guys a little bit easier what's going on than doing it outside. With that said, what we got is I use a choker chain style gambrel. I have this little rope on there because we're going to hang them up in my 4 joists here and hang them down, and that should get me down so I can work at a nice height. So we got choker chain gambrel. I use a fillet knife to skin everything. This is just a 4-inch Rapala fillet knife. I don't think it's quite 4 inches anymore because it's been well used. When I'm doing any kind of skinning or fur work, I use a ceramic steel to sharpen my knife. This one here is from Industrial Diamonds. This is the finer version of it. It's called the Easy Lap. This is a little bit finer coarseness of it. There is a coarser version of this that's a little more aggressive. I like the real fine version because I can put a real nice edge on my knife. I typically will only, I'll go a couple animals and skin my knife. If it feels like it's getting dull at all, just a few laps on the stone, it'll be sharp again. And then to open up all my animals, I just use a utility knife with a hook blade in there, like a shingle blade. They got a few other names, I think, but just a hook blade in there. I found this is the easiest way to open animals up. You can use like a Pelter knife too to do the opening cuts on them. I kind of like this because, like I said, it's kind of got this blunt edge on there, so I can run that along and it kind of controls how deep it wants to cut into the fur. Where like a Pelter knife, the point of your knife is kind of directing where you're going. On a mink especially, because of their glands, I don't want to cut the glands open when I'm opening them up. So again, I use a hook knife essentially to do the initial cuts. I typically use this for a season. I'll use one end of one hook knife for about a season. Towards the end it seems like it gets dull, but like I said, I get quite a bit of use out of that guy. For gloves, you can see I'm wearing latex gloves. I like these Semper Force. I've got smaller hands, so I use large size. I use them for making coyote sets, the whole works, skinning, fleshing, even like cutting up my deer meat. They're powder-free gloves, so I'll wear like this just to kind of keep your hands clean, even trimming deer meat and that type of stuff. So, and then we got the animal of the day here. I got a nice buck mink. He was caught in a 220, so he was caught just behind, he was suitcase just behind the head and right here across the belly. So that may cause me a little issues when I'm skinning him, but we'll see how that goes. He does stink like a buck mink. He's got a musky smell to him. He was caught on dry land, so he's nice and dry. So that should actually help us a little bit when we're getting him on the board and everything. So I don't think, and then like I said, I got my head mount. We'll go over this stuff in the next video as well, but I got a stretcher belly board, and I use a Weeby pelt scraper to scrape the fat off of them. But again, we'll go over that in the next video a little bit too. So again, kind of tricks of the trade: gambrel, knife, sharpener, hook blade, latex gloves, and the animal himself here. So we're going to I'll get this guy ready to go here. We're gonna actually, like I said, I think I'm gonna put you guys on either my chest or head mount. I'm gonna try and make sure you guys can see the best I can while I'm doing this, and then we'll get going here. All right, guys, so we're gonna get going. So what we got here, again, we got my buck mink, got him weighed on the belly or on his back, and I got him kind of weighed flat. He's riggered because he's been dead for a while, so he's actually going to be a little easier to work with. A fresh one's fairly loosey-goosey, and then they don't want to lay like this, so this is going to be nice for videoing for you guys. All right, my initial cuts here, we're going to use my hook knife. We're going to go ring both back legs just below like the ankle joint here. So just below the foot, essentially. I'm going to go around both sides, and then we're going to cut from the ankle down to right below the vent on both legs. And we're going to have to be real careful because like right on either side of the vent, so about like right here and right here is where their scent glands are. So we're going to try and do that as carefully as I can go around the legs and be fairly aggressive, but as I'm cutting down towards the bottom, I may not even use my hook knife all the way to the end. If I can get even to like in here, we're going to stop, and then I'll use my fillet knife, and I can very carefully run that in to make sure I don't cut into those glands, because you cut into that glands, it stinks. You know, they have a musky smell to them. So what we do here, we're just going to take my knife, and like I said, we're going to go just above like the pads in the foot, hook my knife in, and I'm just going to go kind of around the leg. Trying to do this so you guys can see what I'm doing. So all I did is I just kind of hooked it in. You see I got a little fur on my knife there. I just hooked it in, and then I kind of rotated it around. Let's make sure that it cut. Alright, there you can see it cut. And then we'll get on this side here and just make sure you get all the way around. There's one little spot here on the back. Yeah. Okay. So I got that leg all the way around. We're going to do the same thing on this one. Okay. Alright, now you can see like that one I got, so it slid down the leg. This side here I got cut a little bit closer to the foot, but we're going to start now. Like I said, we're going to go right from the heel, and I'm going to cut it right down just on this side of the vent, and then we'll do this leg the same thing here. And like I said, we'll kind of see how my knife is cutting to whether or not I get all the way to like the center of the tail just below the vent here, or if I end up stopping a little bit short. So I'm going to get my hook knife started here. And I'm going to just pinch the leg and the fur here to kind of hold it tight. Okay, so it's cutting really nice here. Alright, so I got basically, and what I'm doing, I just got a garbage bag down here. So some of this loose fur I just throw in my little garbage bag. Alright, so you could see that opened that right up real nice. And I got all the way down to right next to the vent here. We're going to do the same thing on this side. We're just going to hook it in there, kind of pull it just a little to get it started. And then we're just going to slowly pull my knife. And I'm trying to actually pull my knife towards me just a little bit, so I'm not cutting in super deep. Alright, so that one I actually got by the actual vent, because I was under the fur there. You can see that I got it cut open. We'll take my knife here and just make sure that it cut all the way up to the ankle there. Okay. And I'm all the way down, like I said, I'm past the vent on that side. Make sure this side started all the way. Okay, and then now I basically want to get, so right here, this red thing right here, trying to make sure you guys could see what I'm looking at here. This dark red right here, that's the actual gland. So I cut past that. I didn't nick it or anything like that, but I got past it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stick my knife in, and I'm going to run it under the skin over to where I got this cut, and then I'll pull out. So I'm just going to go just behind this gland, and carefully, and I'm running just above the tailbone, and then poke it out where I got my cut coming down the other leg, and then we're going to just pull it at me. So now I basically have a cut that runs all the way from this ankle down and around the vent and then all the way up to this ankle. So what we're going to do here, we're going to kind of open this up, and I'm going to take my knife and just kind of cut right next to like the bone, and we got to get the fur pulled down around the leg here. You know, and you want to make sure you kind of be careful not to cut the actual skin there. So I'm trying to kind of cut towards the actual leg bone. Okay, and see I got it started, you know, probably an inch down the leg, and what that's doing is giving me room for my gambrel to hook onto that leg. And once I get him hanging, I can kind of get the rest of this going. Okay, we're gonna do this leg here. So I'm pushing with this finger on the leg and then pulling with these two are pinching and pulling. This finger is pushing on the leg. I don't know, hopefully you can see it. So I'm pushing and pulling, so I'm keeping some tension on the fur there. Okay, got that side of the leg. Okay, and get just a little on the front side here. All right. Now the last thing I'm gonna do before I hang them up here, I'm gonna go and I'm gonna carefully, right here's the vent, so I got it cut below the vent, but I'm gonna leave a little spot of fur around that vent on the actual animal. So I'm gonna take my knife and I'm gonna slide it from this cut that I got, you know, down the back of his leg on this side, over to this cut I got down the back of the leg on that side. And I'm gonna try and stay as close up to the skin as I can go, and we're gonna go just above the vent. So I'm just kind of gonna gently kind of poke it through there. Okay, you can see it. So I'm out the leg hole or leg cut on that side, and then I'm gonna just turn my knife straight up and down and cut straight up. Okay, now you can see, so basically I left, there's gonna be a little ring of fur right around the vent, otherwise the rest of it is cut off. And what I'm going to do is now I'm going to actually, before I hang him, I want to get basically down, I don't know, to like almost the front of his legs on the belly side skin. Because when I hang him, it's going to fold all this up and you can't really get at that very well. So again, I'm cutting kind of towards the animal a little bit and pulling, you know, and I'm gently pulling and I'm gently cutting just to make sure that I don't accidentally nick the pelt. Okay, so I'm just, once you get a little ways, I can kind of, so I just did that with my thumb. There's a little bit of fat right there in the back that was holding me up, and a little on this side. Okay, so now I got, like I said, I'm basically down to like the front of his legs. So now I can hang him up here. So we're going to take my gambrel. The way chain gambrels work, if you don't know, if you just hold the ring sideways and just drop the chain down through it, it gives you a loop. I'll show you that again. So it hanging straight, I just tipped the ring sideways, drop the chain down through it, and it leaves me a nice little loop. So I'm going to put that around his leg and then cinch it up. And what I'm doing is I'm pulling the fur down so I don't catch the fur in my gambrel. So I'm basically just catching him by the ankle. We'll do the opposite side here. And get this slid over his ankle. And again, that's why I cut around the leg to kind of get the leg started, so it doesn't catch in my gambrel when I pull the gambrel. So now I have him hanging on my gambrel here. So we're going to get him hanging from the ceiling here, and then I'm going to actually switch it to my head instead of on my chest here, so you guys should be able to see a little better what I'm doing here. So like I said, we'll get set up a little bit here again, and then we'll turn you back on. Alright guys, so we're ready to go. I like a chain gambrel for skinning, just because it flexes in and out, you know, depending on the size of your animal. Like a mink's not very wide, skunks typically aren't very wide, but like a coyote, you know, it'll widen out wider for them. I try to get it on the back of their legs. Again, I try to make sure they're basically the same on both sides. If you have like this foot on this side, then they kind of hang wonky like that, and I don't like that. So again, try to keep them even. Two tools I forgot to show you: a tail stripper. This is a homemade one I made. You can actually buy ones that are real close to this now. I basically got a 3/4, half, 3/8, quarter, and a 3/16 hole in there. This mink will probably be either like, you know, one of these smaller ones. Raccoons are typically the big one. Coyotes are kind of either of these two bigger ones. I just have it so it splits open, you put it around, you pinch it, you pull. I like that it's a little bit bigger. It's a 1/2 inch by 1.5 inches. I like it's a little bigger so I can pull on it, especially with the bigger animals. And then we got a tail splitting knife. So once we get down to that far, we'll be using these guys to get the tail taken care of. Otherwise, basically right now we're going to use my fillet knife. I do have a second angle set up. I got my phone going right here. So hopefully, if my hands kind of get in the way of this camera, hopefully my phone will be picking it up. And we'll try and keep this so you guys can see the best I can. This is also zoomed in a little bit more than what the GoPro will. So hopefully this will work out. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of go around the back leg here. And we're going to get both back legs peeled down here. So I just kind of pulling on it, cutting the membrane a little bit. I'm going to set my knife down. I do not pull with my knife in my hand at all, because I start pulling, you do a tip like this, next thing you know, you got, you know, cut in your hand. So I'm going to hold the leg, and I'm just pinching like the end of the leg fur, and I'm going to pull down. One thing, I like the chain gambrel, so I'm just pulling down here. I like the chain gambrel too. I don't have to be super concerned about it cutting like the tendons and stuff on the legs. So what it did is it pulled a little bit of the muscle right there, so I just cut the muscle off, trimmed it so it will keep pulling, and it did a little on the front here too. Okay, and I want to get this peeled down so I'm roughly about halfway around the back, or, you know, ways around the back. So I'm just cutting the membrane there just a little. Put my knife down. And what I'm doing is I'm pinching the fur, and then I'm taking my finger and just kind of pushing my finger down. Mink typically don't have a lot of fat, so they actually skin fairly easy. So I'm just kind of pinching and pulling, and then rotating my finger like that to kind of peel it away. Move over to this leg here. I'm going to cut just a little right here. There we go. And a little on this side of the leg. Again, we're going to kind of hold my leg and pull down. So belly side looks good. We'll pull the back. Okay, so I'm using my thumb on this side to kind of rotate in, and I'm trying to kind of almost peel like part of the back and the back of the leg. So now I got both back legs skinned. I'm basically right here by the tail. So we're going to take my knife. I'm just going to make sure I could still see with my phone here. We're going to take my knife, and we're going to, you can kind of see, hopefully you can see, there's kind of a membrane right here on the edge that's holding my fur from going down. So I'm just going to take my knife and just kind of lightly slice. I'm not really putting a lot of pressure. I'm just slicing and letting me pulling, you know, opposite ways here actually help kind of pull it open. You want to do as least amount of cutting around your fur as you can, because the more you cut, the more chance there is. It's like there you can really see like the membrane where it's caught together. The more you cut, the better chance you have of actually cutting a hole in your pelt. You know, when you go through all the work to trap an animal, you deserve to, or they deserve your respect to try and do the best you can to get them put up and sell them for the most you can. Okay, so basically I got it all the way around, basically the whole tail right up by the body. We're going to split the tail now. So what I'm doing is I basically pinched and then kind of pulling around. So I'm kind of doing this maneuver to pull, and then I'm pinching on the backside, and what that did is it pulled it perfectly tight on the top. So I'm going to take my knife and I'm going to go right down the middle of the tail, and we're going to make a slice here. So we're going to just going to even push pretty hard. All right, you see how that opened that right up? It did cut a little bit of hair there. Throw that in the garbage. And now I'm going to kind of take and I'm going to kind of cut the membrane both ways to get, so I got one side of that kind of going. And got the other side kind of going. Okay, so now I'm going to grab this side here and we're going to try and get that all the way around. Basically, I mean, half of the tail. And then we'll do the opposite side until you can get a hole between the body of the mink and the tail. So now I'm going to put my knife down and we're going to kind of roll like this with my fingers to kind of peel part of that back. Okay, so you can see now I got a pretty good ways down. And then now I'm going to kind of grab right up by the tail and I'm going to pull down. Okay. And you kind of see how, like, I have it split a little farther than it pulled. So some of the membrane up around this part of the tail is actually holding me up here. So we're going to take my knife and we're going to cut right towards the tailbone, right at the edge of where the fur meets the tail. And I'm going to keep going kind of around until I get it down to where I got it cut there. Okay. So basically you're just cutting a little bit of membrane. All right, so now I got like 2 inches of that guy split down. We're going to get my tail stripper. And like I said, that I'm going to probably use like that. I think that might be like a 3/16 or I forget, but we're going to get my stripper pulled around it and then pinch tight. You know, if it was bigger, obviously I'd use a bigger one, but like that's not going to work. I try to go with the smallest size I can, and that actually helps you get it stripped the easiest. Okay, so I got it shut here. We're going to grab onto that with one hand, and I'm going to kind of pinch the tailbone and use my hand to kind of help hold the critter in place. And then I'm going to pull down with this hand, kind of push up and away with that hand. And hopefully you guys can kind of see. So I'm just pulling. Oh, my thing slipped just a little. Okay, I'll try again here. Wiggle it just a little. It started going. I'm trying to do this so you guys can kind of see what's going on there. Okay. So typically I would just keep pulling all the way down, but I was trying to do it slow so you guys can see. So what it does is it pulls all the tailbone right out of the tail. Okay. So now there's no bone or anything in the tail, but we need to split that open. Okay. So we're going to take my tail split knife here, and you can use like a normal knife or whatever, or a pelter's knife, and you would basically just run it down through the, you know, the hole where the bone was, like that, and then just cut out like, you know, and it would open it up. So what I try to do is I try to kind of get it lined up so I'm holding the bottom and top of the tail with my fingers, and then kind of pull it towards me, and I try to fluff it, and that will kind of reorientate the whole tail here. I'm gonna hook my tail knife in there and basically just kind of pull down, nice even pressure all the way to the end. Okay, and you guys could see it split that whole tail open right all the way to the very tip down here. So it's open right to the end. Okay. So now that's almost the hardest part, to be honest with you. Okay. We're going to take my knife here. You can see we got some of this fat and stuff kind of holding our, holding our pelt back. So this is a male, so we got a penis bone right here. We're going to have to cut that off of the pelt here. So I'm pulling down, not with a lot of pressure, but a little pressure. You can kind of see where the pelt kind of balls up. I'm trying to make sure you cut up above that. So I'm going to cut up right here. And at the same time, like I said, I'm putting pressure down with this hand, and then I'm kind of slicing towards the body. Not, you don't want to slice down like that. You're going to cut right into your pelt. So I'm trying to cut like towards the body here until you get down. So right here, I got to the end of the penis bone, and then you just kind of cut that off. away from your pelt there. Okay. Kind of make sure, so what I'm doing is I'm trying to get kind of the fatty membrane there all the way around, cut away from the body and onto just the skin. Okay, now we can get a little more aggressive with this guy. So I'm going to grab on each side. I'm grabbing basically the legs upside down, and I'm just kind of pinching like this with my hands. We're going to grab that guy and we're just going to put a little bit of pressure down. And I'm going to keep going. So I basically, now I got all the way so the head is inside of there. What I like to do now is I actually like to just kind of pinch around on the bottom and then just continue to add pressure. And you'll go all the way, so right here is the beginning of the front legs. So I actually want to pull past that. What I'm going to do, I'm actually going to shorten up my game rail so I can get this up a little higher so I can film it just a little better. So I'm going to shut you guys off, and then we'll continue to skin in the rest. Basically, I'll skin the whole rest of them once I get this moved up a little bit. All right, so I just moved him up a little bit so you guys can see a little better what I'm doing. So again, right here is kind of his shoulder. So I need to pull that down a little bit farther. So we're just going to pull. You can cut like some of this meaty membrane here. So again, the white line is my pelt. So this is hide going this way. That's, you know, carcass that way. So I'm going to cut just above that line. You can cut kind of that meaty membrane. I don't get too carried away with that. We'll pull him down just a little bit more here. All right, so this is like the leg muscle on both sides. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take my fingers and I'm going to kind of push in between his front legs. I want to push that down because I need to get behind like the front leg on both sides. So I'm going to just kind of take my fingers and I'm just kind of pushing the chest part of it down just a little bit. And then we're going to, so what I just did, I just kind of grabbed the leg and I'm kind of tipping the leg up like that while holding the pelt in place. And again, I need to get my finger, so I'm just kind of doing like this kind of maneuver with my finger to get all the way through between the leg and the hide. We'll do this side. So again, I'm kind of just rocking my finger, just letting like the stickiness of my glove pull on the pelt. I'm not like pinching the pelt at all. Do that on the inside until I get poked through here. Okay, so now I got my finger all the way through there. So now I'm just going to kind of hook my finger like this, and I'm just going to kind of pull down. Because my game rail is set up here, I'm going to actually pull up on the leg a little bit here, just so I don't, I didn't show that very well. So what I basically did is I was holding it like this, and I basically just kind of rocked this thumb that way, like in his elbow, and pulled down. I'll try to show it a little better in this side. So we're going to hold the body and pull down just a little. So what that did is just give me a little bigger hole there. So top hand on the top above my by pushing on the leg, my fingers kind of pulling down on the hide, and that actually pulls it kind of away from the body here, and it slides it down on his leg on this side. Okay, so I got both sides pulled down. I'm going to take my knife here. I typically like to leave my legs as long as I can. Once I put them on the actual board, I can always trim it off shorter. So I'm going to go right up here at the top, and I'm going to stick my knife through the leg hole, and then basically pulling at me, put pretty good pressure, and slide it around, and then cut the last little bit. And there, that leg's cut. So again, I'm just kind of pulling pressure towards me, you know, pretty good pressure, as much as you want. And then just kind of slicing a little as you kind of work your way around, and then get the opposite side here. Okay, and the front legs are out. All right, I'm going to cut just a little bit of the membrane right where that pelt meets the hide there, and we're going to pull down again. And we're going to do a little bit on the bottom here. So I'm trying to get kind of the pelt started up over the head. So the neck is smaller than the head. So once you kind of get up that far, again, I'm cutting, you can see, I hope see my knife. I'm cutting straight at the actual animal, not at the hide. So I'm above where the hide is attached there. Hope you guys can see that. And then I'm cutting at a little bit of an, I'm cutting directly at the actual animal. All right, we're gonna squeeze and pull down again. So again, I'm not pulling with the hand with my knife in there. If I want to do that, we'll put my knife down. So again, if I had a little better, a little stronger game braille set up how I'm holding it, I would just grab and pull as hard as I can, or pull not hard as I can, but pull down, and it would pull that all right off. I don't want to pull that hard on my little rope here. So again, I'm just cutting around the head. Okay, we gotta be getting just about to the ears. Okay, on a mink and a weasel, their ears are kind of on the side of the head. The eyes are kind of on the front of the head. They're gonna be down about this far. So like my ears are gonna be right in here. We're gonna take my knife, and again, I'm gonna go in just behind where that little membrane is there, and kind of slicing it open. All right, so right here, I hope you guys can see, this is kind of the cartilage of the ear. I try to leave as much ear on my pelt as I can. You could cut it right here way next to the pelt, but you're going to get a huge ear hole if you do that. So I try to cut right next to the pelt. So again, we'll kind of get that side going. So right here you can see is the ear. There's kind of a cartilagely thing. So I'm actually going to go back. So my pelt is way up to here. I'm going to go back here, and I'm going to just slice. I'm putting pretty good pressure down towards the head and then slicing. You can see I only got like maybe a 1/4 inch ear hole, maybe a little less. So on this side, we're going to do the same thing. My pelt is way out here, but I'm going to cut way back here just to kind of reduce the size of my ear hole. Because I don't want an ear hole that's like a 1/2 inch around. Okay, so what I just did is I squeezed the neck and I just pulled a little pressure again. So you kind of tighten up all the membrane. We're just, again, real lightly. I'm not even really pushing towards the animal all that hard. I'm just kind of lightly slicing back and forth just to kind of get that little membrane broke loose. Pull them tight again. So I'm getting right to the eye, and I'll show you how I know that here. So basically you can kind of see right here's the ear. There's kind of this line right here. They have kind of a muscular forehead. There's kind of a line along the side of their cheek where that line kind of comes up here and meets kind of this meaty membrane. That's where the eye is. So I'm actually going to slice kind of towards the animal, towards the skull, because again, I don't want to cut a huge eye hole in there. And okay, so I got it just started there. You can see right here is where the eye is going to be. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to pinch the pelt between my thumb and my forefinger. Then, so if it's flat like that and I'm cutting, you're kind of cutting right onto the skull. But if I pinch it, now you can kind of see I got a little bit of a ripple there. And then cut, and there's your eye. So do the same thing on this side. We're going to get kind of up to that eye. And then we're going to kind of pinch. And you kind of see, I hope you guys can see the little bit of dark right here. That's the eye right there. Right, so I'm going to kind of pinch. All right, so I got basically cut past the eye on both sides. All right, and what I'm doing right now is I'm actually pinching right at the end of the nose and then squeezing. So you kind of see when it's fairly loose, but if I squeeze, it kind of pushes the animal that way, and it puts good tension on the pelt, so I can kind of get it tight. So directly below the eye is where the mouth is going to be. So I'm going to go kind of straight below the eye, and I'm going to slice. And there you go. So it opened up the mouth. We're going to cut a little on the bottom of his jaw here. Okay, we're going to do the same thing on this side. Directly below his eye, it opened up his mouth. Here's his mouth. I typically like to, on pretty much any animal I skin, I like to get the lower jaw peeled off first before I try to do the upper jaw. Sometimes you got to kind of do them jointly, but so what I'm doing is just putting my knife right up to the jawbone and then slicing, and I'm kind of working from one side of his jaw to the other. Okay, once you get about so far, what I just did there is I stuck my finger in the actual like mouth hole there, and then I can put more pressure on just the lower jaw. Okay, and I'm kind of just going back and forth. Sometimes your pelt will catch on the teeth, so you got to kind of make sure you get your pelt up and over that tooth. You'll catch like on the canines on the top. Some guys will just cut the lip off, you know, shorter, because you cut it off when you put them on the stretcher. I like to leave it on there, so then I can kind of control how big my mouth hole gets when I'm actually putting them on my board. All right, we're getting a little bit of blood. So I just got a blue shop rag, and I'll wipe that off. If I wasn't videoing, I typically wouldn't worry about that little bit of blood, but since you guys are watching, I'm trying to show you what I'm doing. I wipe that off. Otherwise, if it's like gushing blood, I'll wipe it off. I'm using just blue shop rags. You know, they work good. You know, when you're done, you just throw the thing away. All right, so you can kind of see I got the lower jaw peeled off. So all I got left is the upper jaw. So I have my hand in the actual mouth hole, and I'm pushing my finger up against the end of his nose. And what that's allowing me to do is it's kind of controlling the whole thing, and I'm kind of tipping my hand like this towards me. And that's kind of putting pressure on some of this membrane on the top and on the side of his face. So I'm kind of running my knife like flat like that, right up against the actual animal, right up against the jaw, and then doing real small cuts. You know, and I'm putting most of the pressure is coming from this hand. Not really, I'm not pressing on my knife at all. Okay, now I'm basically down to the nose. So on the nose, again, I got my finger here. This finger is pushing up on that nose, while the rest of my hand's kind of pulling down on the pelt. So I'm pulling down with these and pushing up with that. So that's how I'm keeping so much pressure. Even though the animal is loose, I'm putting pressure using my hand. By just pushing this finger on the nose, these are pulling on like the lower jaw in the hole, the mouth hole. So basically I'm just gonna go around from one side to the other here, and I'm just cutting kind of right next to the membrane, real small white cuts, until I basically get to the end of his nose, which isn't too far. It's about maybe a 1/4 inch past his canines. Here's his canines, it's about a 1/4 inch out to the end there. Once I get about that far, we're going to turn instead of cutting kind of, again, at this time I'm actually cutting towards my pelt to go around his nose because I don't want to cut into the cartilage until I get right to the end. Again, I still pushing with my finger on the end of his nose. We're going to take and we're going to just kind of turn my knife right towards the cartilage here and kind of gently cut through that. And I'm kind of feeling with my finger to make sure I don't cut the nose off. If I feel like I'm cutting too close to my finger, so if you're cutting like that, I'd probably cut my finger. If I cut like this, you're going to leave a huge chunk of cartilage on your pelt. So I'm kind of feeling the knife blade on the side of my finger. I'm just going to cut straight through. And there you go. So there is a finished mink skinned. You can see there's not a lot of fat on there. There's actually quite a bit right here towards the butt. But on the rest of it, you leave all that on there. So, all right. So that's how I skin a mink. I appreciate you guys watching Schmattz Outdoors. If you want to see part 2 of the series, stay tuned. It will be coming out shortly here. That will be actually doing the little bit of fleshing on this guy. And then I'll show you how I pin him onto a stretcher. So stay tuned for that video. If you guys got any questions on anything I was doing here, or if you have any suggestions, again, feel free to leave comments down below. We're all here to help each other out. That's what my whole channel is about, trying to help out other trappers. So if you guys have, you know, tricks of the trade, anything like that you've learned over the years on how to skin a mink, you know, or doing something a little different than what I'm doing, feel free to leave them in the comments so everybody else can kind of benefit from all of our experience. Otherwise, we'll see you guys on the next one.